Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another ship fitting guide for EVE Echoes, the series that aims to stop you from fitting an Omen trainer with Mark V small missile launchers. Now today we're going to be looking at the Amarr MALLER, and I'll explain why I call it the MALLER in a minute. This is one of the Amarr heavy cruisers. This thing is tanky as all heck, can take a lot of incoming damage, and can really dish it out back. And I'm actually going to do a 4 million-isk mission using this to showcase that it's possible, despite the fact that I have no skills relevant to this ship whatsoever. We're going to cover how to fit this, how to use it, so that you can try that out for yourself. Now if you do enjoy this video, let me know by hitting like on it, sub to the channel for all things EVE Echoes, and ding that notification bell so that you never miss one of my daily uploads. Let me know what topics you want to see me cover in future videos. If there's a particular ship you want to see covered in a ship fitting guide, let me know in the comment section below. It does take me a bit of time to get hold of them, fit them, and actually try them, so I do have a little bit of patience, please. But there we go, I will try and get it done. Finally as well, if you do want to go the extra mile to help support this channel, you can do so by joining us over on Patreon. Details are on screen now, every pledge helps. Alright, that said and done, let's talk about the Amarr MALLER. Now the MALLER, or however you choose to pronounce it, is a Tech 6 cruiser found on the Amarr Empire ship tree. So if we scroll all the way up to there, you will see it here. That's the MALLER trainer. Here we have the MALLER. Now before I have a look at this particular ship's stats, to explain why I call it the MALLER. Ultimately some people call it the mauler, as in something that mauls you like a bear would. However, that would then be spelt M-A-U-L-E-R, not M-A-double-L-E-R. Now, okay, you could then argue, but what about shopping malls, M-A-double-L? Ultimately that is actually an incorrect pronunciation of shopping mall. That should be a mall, like Pall Mall in London. If you play Monopoly, you should recognise that one from the board. That's why I call this a MALLER, because no one else has told me elsewise from CCP, so that's what I'm sticking to. Sue me. Anyway, so the MALLER, as I've mentioned, is what I would call a heavy cruiser. It's not quite a battle cruiser, but it is, like the Rupture, an incredibly tanky ship. Let's have a look at its stats. So in its attributes and fittings, we can see the fitting profile. We have 1 drone tube that can launch either small or medium drones, 4 high slots, 2 middle slots, 5 low slots, and then 2 of each of the power grid and mechanical rigs. The defense here, as you can see, is absolutely stonking on this thing. 2,892 on the shields, with 4,260 on armor, and then 3,480 on structure. This is definitely an armor tank ship, but if you're playing an Amarr pilot, you should know by now that most of the Amarr ships are armor tanked. This one does actually have a decent amount of structure there as well, which does come in handy later on. As you'll see, it means that once you start hitting low armor, you do still have plenty of time to warp out whilst you're taking damage into hull. That is an incredibly vital piece of information. Some ships have pretty good shield or pretty good armor, but then terrible hull, which means you need to warp before you hit hull, otherwise it's just going to cut through that like a knife through hot butter. As we look a little bit lower, being an Amarr ship, this does have a fairly decent capacitor and a decent power grid. 807 megawatts for the power grid, 3,230 gigajoules for the capacitor. That is pretty good for an Amarr cruiser, but again, we are going to deal with that later, because obviously everything that this ship does uses capacitor. So things like, obviously, firing laser turrets, that kind of thing. Lock turret 6, signature radius 103.9, so whereas the compatriot, with the Rupture in the Minmatar tree, you should now be able to see how much bigger the MALLER is in comparison, how small actually the Rupture really is in terms of signature radius, which is actually quite surprising. This thing actually has a solid sensor strength and scan resolution as well. For a ship of this size, it does lock on fairly quickly. Finally, however, flight velocity of 262 and a warp speed of 3, plus that hefty weight, with a very low inertia modifier though, does actually make this quite a slow, tanky ship. Basically, think of this as partway between a cruiser and a battle cruiser. That's why I call these the heavy cruisers. If we have a look at the trait description for this, you'll see that for each skill you have in armor operation, you'll get a 4% armor resistance increase, up to a total, obviously, plus 20% armor resistance when that is trained fully up to level 5. I only have that at level 2. That's worth noting for later on in this video. I only have armor operation at level 2, which is just a basic thing that all pilots have. I've not trained into that because I mainly use shield tank ships. Cruiser Command then will also give you an increase to medium laser damage and a reduction to medium laser capacitor need. That means if you're using this ship, obviously those are the two skills you're going to want to train first. And as I've mentioned in my other cruiser videos, I do not have any skill points whatsoever into cruiser command, so I'm not getting any of those damage or capacity reduction bonuses there, and I'm only getting an additional 8% armor resistance from the armor operation skill. That is actually kind of an important point to make, because I can still tank a full 4 million ISK encounter with this without those bonuses. If you actually skill into those bonuses, you're going to do even better. Like, genuinely, you're going to shoot things down a lot faster than I can, and you're going to survive a lot longer. Not only because of the ship bonuses, but because obviously any modules that you're running will be better as well. Now, talking of modules, let's actually have a look at how I would fit this. With those bonuses to your armor resistance, plus the sizable armor tank, alongside the fact that this has a whopping 5 low slots but only 4 high slots, you can kind of guess that the MALLER is intended to be something that is tankier than it is damaging. Whereas the Oman Navy issue, which is the other Tech 6 MAR cruiser, ultimately is far more weighed towards DPS. That thing has 5 high slots but only 4 low slots, meaning the Navy issue is better at dealing damage but is a little bit squishier, whereas the MALLER doesn't do quite as much the same kind of damage that an Oman Navy issue can, but it is an awful lot tankier. Of course, that's what we've gone for here in the fit. Now for the 4 high slots, I've gone for Joust Medium Pulse Lasers. You could go for beams here. I just personally find that the beams, they're a little bit too short range for me. I like having the pulses just to have a little bit more range control and be able to shoot stuff as it approaches on its way in, but either will ultimately work here. Neither of those is going to cause you problems. I just have a personal preference towards pulses just for that control. Now, because of that, I'm going to be orbiting around the 10 to 12 kilometer region to get the most out of those particular lasers. Here, then, I've gone for a Mark V Medium Energy Nosferatu. With an optimal range of 8 and an accuracy fall-off of 4, this works pretty well at the 10 to 12 kilometer reach, and will go all the way up to about 16 kilometers. Ultimately, sitting at that 10 to 12 means I'm actually getting a decent amount of energy drained from that, and it is therefore helping to feed my capacitor tank, keeps those missiles firing, and keeps my other modules going, but more on that later. For the other mid-slot, I've gone for a Mark V Stasis Webifier. This is just in case anything does get up close and personal, I can hit it with a web, slow it right down, and then the drone and those 4 turrets will then be able to pick it off that little bit better, because it's not moving as quickly. Now, obviously, for the drone here, I've gone for a Mark V Infiltrator. At this point in time, I can't use Mark 7 drones. No one can even make them. No one is Mark 7 yet. Ultimately, Mark V are the best that we can get at this point, but just put in whichever medium drone you can get hold of. This is not really for main DPS. It does help, obviously, but it is mainly for dealing with anything that happens to slip under your guns and get a little bit too close for personal taste. Now, looking at the low slots, this is where things get a bit more exciting. Here, I've gotten for 2 Gorget small armor repairers. We've got 2 of those fitted here. These obviously allow us to boost up that armor, repair it as we start taking damage in combat. It's worth noting, unlike shield boosters, armor repairers actually do their effect at the end of the cycle, so you do need to be a little bit preemptive. You need to activate it, it'll do the full cycle, and then as it finishes the cycle, that's when it actually repairs the armor. So you do need to have these activated just before your shield runs out, not as soon as you start taking damage with the armor. Talking about getting activated as your shield starts hitting low, we then have a Pilfer Adaptive Armor Hardener and a Moat Reactive Armor Hardener. Now, the difference between these two is fairly substantial, actually. A lot of people keep asking about these and the shield tank variants. So to explain, an Adaptive Armor Hardener gives you a flat bonus across the board. Here you can see that's 19.13% increase to my electromagnetic, thermal, kinetic, and explosive damage. Straight away, that's what you get when this is active. It just keeps going. Now, the reactive, however, is a little bit different. What this one does is it says it reacts to the incoming damage. When you have it active, it will start off by giving you 12.75% across the board. As you take damage from hits, it will increase resistance to whatever you're getting hit by, whilst decreasing things that you are not getting hit by. In this case then, if I was, say, getting hit by decomposers that deal kinetic and explosive damage, then those resistances will increase with each hit, whereas the electromagnetic and the thermal will decrease to compensate. That is what a reactive hardener does, and you do get penalties abilities for stacking multiples of these together. Some people do like to put a couple of the red ones together, and in fairness, you do actually still get a fairly decent bonus for having 2 reds, but I prefer to have a red and a gold, just because 1, it looks better when fitted, and 2, I know that I'm getting a decent flat bonus to start with, and then I will continue to adapt as the fight goes on. It should be noted that it only begins to adapt once your armour is getting hit, not your shields, only when your armour is getting hit. So, again, you activate it just before your armour starts taking damage, and it will take a few seconds and a few hits to adjust to the incoming damage. Obviously, much more useful in PvE, where you're going up against rats who will probably have the same weapon types, like obviously if you're in a Mars space, those rats will have lasers which do electromagnetic and thermal. Not so useful in PvP, where you may have a load of people attacking you using lots of different damage types, at which point the reactive is just going to struggle to react to the correct ones. Now, the final low slot that I've got here is a Mark V medium capacitor battery. Now, actually, as we have a look at this ship as standard, it is actually capacitor stable. That means I can have all of this running when I'm close enough, and I will not drain my capacitor. My capacitor will drain at the same speed, or slower, than it is recharging. That allows me to maintain my capacitor quite comfortably. But again, a lot of people run neutralizers, a lot of the rats have things like Nosferatus as well, which are going to continue to drain my capacitor. And being a cruiser-sized target, obviously I've got a fairly sizable capacitor, meaning anything smaller than a cruiser, the Nosferatu is actually going to work, meaning this tank is fairly susceptible to being energy drained. As such, having a media capacitor battery there means I can dump a whole load of gigajoules into my capacitor in an emergency. I can just fill that up in order to be able to keep funding my armor repairers, or to keep my my guns shooting, or to activate the warp drive if I need to make a speedy retreat and I've been neutralized. You activate that as an emergency, and then your capacitor will recharge underneath it before that runs out. The Mark V is the standard one here. You can go, obviously, for better. They do get a little bit more expensive. These are selling for a decent amount on the market, actually, which is quite nice. But ultimately, a Mark V is more than what you need here. Then finally, if we have a look at the rigs, in the low case rigs here, because this isn't a Mars ship, and because it is predominantly an active armor tank, I've got a lot of modules that are feeding on that tank, and I'm going to be using the capacitor. I've gone for a capacitor control circuit, which reduces the recharge time for the capacitor, recharges faster, and for a capacitor control circuit 2 there, so we've got 2 of those, filling that up nice and quickly. That's what helps me maintain the capacitor stability. Now, in the power grid rigs here, a laser collision accelerator gives me flat damage bonus to the lasers as I'm firing them, and then a repair augmenter gives me a reduction to the amount of capacitor that the armor repairers are using, which means I can activate them longer. You'll see there's a running theme here with ensuring that I remain capacitor stable at all time. The aim being that as long as I can out-heal the damage, I can keep going forever, and that's kind of the point. So, I was fairly lucky today. If I go into my encounters here, you'll see that I managed to pick up Elite Hair Squad, which is one of the 4 million ISK combat encounters. So I thought for some ships and giggles, this would be a great one to showcase the MALLER in. So what I'm going to do now is, of course, we are in the system I need. We're going to go Cosmic Anomaly, find the right one here on the list, Elite Hair Squad Advanced, and we're going to set to about a 25-kilometer warp in. The main reason we do this is just to give us a little bit of breathing room as we arrive, so that we've got we've got a bit of time just to lock onto the ships that we want to lock onto, approach the ones we want to, and actually understand what's going on in that combat scenario. Good lord, I hate how long this ship takes to align and to warp. Oh, yeah, I know, it's pretty much a battle cruiser at this point. It's a heavy, slow-moving ship. Ultimately, if battle cruisers are halfway between cruisers and battleships, then this ship is kind of halfway between cruisers and battle cruisers. I suppose you could call it a heavy cruiser in that regard. Anyway, we're warping into the system now. I am going to set this to station just in case this all goes horrifically wrong, because it's prone to doing that with me when I'm trying to make a video. But now that we are here at the Combat Anomaly, we're going to lock onto everything, and of course we are going to target priority onto the small ships, things like the Merlins, destroyers, any kind of frigate or destroyer, so like the Corax, the Merlin, those are going to be the 2 ones we go for first here. And as we come into range, I'm going to start to activate everything that we have in order to hit that as it closes in. Once it gets up close and personal, I will then activate the webs just to slow it down if I need to. As it stands, though, ultimately I'm hoping I can take it out before it gets too close. Now you'll notice that even without any form of skills, and with shields not being this ship's forte, that shield is still lasting a few seconds as it takes a couple of impacts here and there from everything else. As we get closer to going into armour, I am going to activate the other modules and start up that armour repairer. Now we're going to lock on to the Pithy Corax. That wants to be our next target ideally, so we're going to focus fire on that, set the orbit, and start doing what we need to there. Now you'll see that I'm taking a little bit of damage into the armour, but it shouldn't be too much, and it should be okay for our armour repairers basically to keep on top of that. I am going to need to switch off my Nosferatu quickly and switch it back on so that it is on the correct Corax there, rather than on the Blackbird, because otherwise, I'm going to be draining from something that's entirely too far away. Now, I am taking a fair amount of damage here. I'm not going to lie, that's a fair amount hitting me. It's going to start looking very scary very soon, but I am also whittling down the number of guns that are firing at me. So once I've gone from taking this Corax down, that's another ship that is not firing at me. I should be taking slightly less damage, and I can move on to my next target, which in this case will be the Osprey. Still a little bit scary, but again, remember I am unskilled in this ship. Ultimately, if you're skilling into armour repairers and into the MALLER properly, so that you're getting those bonuses, you should do even better than I am. Now that we're taking a little bit less damage, hopefully those armour repairers are going to pick that up a little bit, and we will start to see. If things do get hairy and come into hull, ultimately I can still pull away, get some safety at a station, repair, come out, and continue with this particular wave. Yeah, we are taking a little bit of hull damage now, which is getting slightly worrying. So what I'm going to do at this point is we are going to hit dock, and we're going to move away for now. Ultimately, again, I just want to showcase that yes, I'm taking quite a bit of damage here. This is still fine. We're still nice and safe here. Nothing bad is ultimately happening here. I can pull out to a station. I can repair that up. I can jump back in. The point is that I started off with 7 ships there. I'm already down to 4 ships remaining. I can then just jump back out into combat and keep going there. Now, ultimately, I want to keep my armour repairers going at this point in time. I can switch the others off, though, before I dock, because if I dock with unrepaired armour, then, of course, I am going to take a repair bill on the armour. If you go in with shield missing, the station doesn't charge you, obviously, for your shields to replenish, but it does charge you for undocking and repairing up your armour. So ideally, once you're next to a station like this, you want to keep those armour repairers going so that you can repair up to the top there, and that will just help you minimise your repair costs. Obviously, I'm going to dock up in a second, and we're going to go back out there to showcase that this is possible, and I'm not just being crazy and taking a load of damage and saying, hey guys, you can do it, honest. We are going to showcase this properly. Now, we did just have a bit of an error there. My internet completely cut out whilst I was taking down that Osprey, so I'm probably going to have cut that little bit out of the video, but you can see now we are back in this particular anomaly. I'm now taking on the Blackbird and whittling that one down before we move in to those 2 Ferox. So I've not had any issues. You can see my shields were eaten, and a little bit of my armour has been dented in the meantime, but again, not overly anything scary. Just keep it nice and calm, keep it nice and straightforward and simple, and we can get in there, finish off that Blackbird, and move on to the 2 Feroxes. Now, these are both pretty nasty ships to deal with. They are Caldari battle cruisers, and they are tanky as all heck. So the aim of the game here is for me to keep on repairing up my armour, get that Blackbird down, and now move on to the Feroxes. Again, that now means we're down from 7 ships to only 2 remaining in this particular wave. This is, again, unskilled. I have no skills at all relevant to the situation here, therefore I am taking a lot more damage than you would if you actually had the correct skills trained, because you're going to be getting those armour bonuses, which I just don't have. But you can see now that we're onto the Feroxes, and now that we're actually orbiting those, and it's just those 2 ships, I am not taking as much damage as I was before. In fact, if we open up the fitting window here and have a look at the defences, you should see as well that the armours have now actually sorted their defences out there. That adaptive armour hardener is doing its job and rejigging those armour resistances in order to better protect me in this particular fight. Again, there we are, we're now moving down towards hull again. I may need to pull out of this one a second time just because those Feroxes hit like trucks, but we are doing some damage and we are whittling away at this particular anomaly, and that's kind of the point that I want to get at here. Again, nice and relaxed. I've got the alert there that I'm right now into hull damage and I should probably move away. I'm fine with this. It's relaxed. I can head off, repair, come back in and continue. Now, I know a lot of you are watching this going, come on, Benzie, what the hell are you trying to prove here? I'm trying to showcase that if I can do this unskilled with none of the relevant ship skilled, then ultimately this is the kind of mission you can do if this ship actually has the correct skills in place. I'm not going to keep showcasing this whole jumping back and forth, but as long as you remain nice and calm and you've got a few bits of ISK here, it's not much for me to repair this ship up. Again, especially if I repair the armour before docking, there's not much at all, I just pay for that little bit of hull repair. It makes this a very straightforward mission to do, and with the skills, you're going to find it even easier. So if you like the looks of the MALLER, what other ships can you kind of expect to go into from there? Well, let's have a look at the Amarr tree and scroll up. Obviously the MALLER is here at Tech 6. Now once you hit Tech 7, you also get access to the MALLER Guardian, and at Tech 8 we have the MALLER 2 Guardian. I love the red coloration on this one. Now these are kind of like the MALLER in that they are very, very much all about that armour tanking. As you go up here, you'll see that they do actually lose the high slots. They drop only to 3 high slots, but go all the way up to 6 on the low, which makes these incredibly tanky. On top of that, they also have that bonus that gives them armor link modules. The fact that you can equip a medium armor link onto this is a very important point to the Guardian Mallers. The aim there is that ultimately you have that active. If you've watched my video on using the Thrasher Guardian, you'll understand what's going on here. You basically link your armor to every ship nearby. Anything that hits their armor damages yours instead at a reduced cost. If it hits for them for 100 damage, you only take 50 or something similar to that. So if you're thinking of playing the tank, then the MALLER is a great place to start, and you can go up into the MALLER Guardian and the MALLER 2 Guardian later on. If we look into the battle cruiser tree though, you will start to see then we can go up to the Harbinger. The Harbinger prototype becomes available at Tech level 7. This has 6 high slots, but still maintains those 5 low slots that you're used to on the MALLER. This just means that as an increase, it is a straight up increase. You get that same amount of tank in the bottom, plus you get additional turrets in the top. All of who, as you can see here, with a roll bonus, get additional optimal range and accuracy fall off just from being on the ship. An advanced medium laser upgrade, which you're probably going to be training anytime soon as well, because the MALLER benefits from using those medium lasers, is going to be something you're looking to train into, so you're going to be starting to get those skills. The only difference here with the Harbinger is that you would then start to train into Battle Cruiser Command rather than just Cruiser. This will then allow you to fly one of these things really quite well. You can see here inertia modifier there, reduction. This is a very tanky ship, great little battle cruiser to take out, get you started trying out battle cruisers, and the skills that you're training for the MALLER do convert across into the Harbinger prototype. From there, obviously, you can go up into the mainline Harbinger, up and beyond and further away. Now, of course, yeah, you know I can't finish a video without talking about the pirate ships. In Sanchez Nation, there is obviously under the cruisers here, the Phantasm. Now, the Phantasm is slightly different to using the MALLER in that it is a shield tank rather than armor, but it's hard not to talk about it simply because of the amount of lasers that it can fit, and it still has those 5 low slots, which allow you to actually make this astonishingly tanky. It's also actually quite fast for a ship of this size, especially with those roll bonuses of the additional afterburner velocity bonus there for advanced cruiser command, gives you some rather hefty speeds to this thing. Beyond that as well, being an Amarr ship, you do get 2 different pirate factions. If we look across at the Ashamu, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because it's more of an electronic warfare vessel, but it is something just to be aware of, simply because it does use medium lasers. It's a ship that you can use with the medium laser skills that you are already training for the MALLER and any other ships beyond. And there we have it, just about everything that you need to know about getting started with the MALLER, MALLER, whatever the heck you want to call this thing. It's a beautiful looking ship, and I say that as a Minmatar pilot. I do love how this ship looks. Yeah, I kind of wish it wasn't in the gold and white, but heck, that's what ship skins are for. If you're using this ship, do let me know in the comment section down below how you're finding it. If you've got a build that's different to mine, let me know as well. Obviously, there are different ways of fitting any particular ship, and I'm not saying that mine is correct or that yours is wrong. Everyone has their own unique ways of building into these things. I'm just showcasing one that I've found to work and I'm quite enjoying. Let me know how you're getting on with the MALLER in the comment section down below. Let me know what ships you're excited for in future and what topics you want me to cover in a future ship fitting guide. Otherwise, folks, happy sailing and see you in New Eden!